and the good. Behold, the eye of the Lord is on those who fear him, on those who hope in his steadfast love. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the earth. Hagar learned in her moment of invisibility that he is El Roi, the God who sees me. But to truly appreciate how significant of a statement that is coming from Hagar, we have to understand a little more about who Hagar is. Remember, Hagar is a slave. She has no rights. She has little to no power of choice or right of refusal. We don't know what her personal feelings were about the plan that Sarah had hatched for her to conceive her child, but it wouldn't have mattered. She may have been treated generally better than other slaves, does not take away from the fact that she was owned by other people. Her time wasn't hers. And as the story so clearly indicates, her own body wasn't hers. Not only was she a slave to Abraham and Sarah, but she was most likely given to them by the Pharaoh of Egypt as a present of sorts to Abraham. Because if you remember, Abraham during a famine goes to Egypt, and the Lord never tells him to go to Egypt. This is something of note. The Lord never tells him to go to Egypt like he tells him to go other places. Abraham perhaps made the decision on his own to go to Egypt. He goes to Egypt, and before he gets there, he tells Sarah, who, buckle up, get ready for this. It just so happens to be that she is kind of his sister and his wife. It happened back then. It's not, it's weird now, but it happened back then. It's his half-sister, and so he says to Sarah, when we get to Egypt, I need you to tell everybody, every single person you see, don't tell them that I'm your husband, tell them I'm your brother. Because if you tell them I'm your husband, they're going to kill me because you're beautiful. She's 65, 70 years old, but so she's up there in age, but still, apparently she is that beautiful that the Pharaoh and his men might kill Abraham so that they can take her as his wife. So he says, don't tell him I'm your husband, tell him I'm your sister, technically, or I'm your brother, technically it's true. And so Sarah goes along with that plan, and the Pharaoh takes her into his harem. And he gives gifts to Abraham, and the Bible tells us that he gives him all kinds of livestock and cattle, and he gives him men servants and maid servants. And then, of course, the men of Egypt get sick, and there's they come to the realization that it's because Sarah is actually Abraham's wife, and so Pharaoh says, I need you to take your wife, your sister, whatever she is, and get out of my country, and don't give me anything that I gave you back. Keep it. Just get out of here. You don't have to go home, but you got to get out of here, is what Pharaoh said to him. And out of this likely comes Hagar. So Hagar was not only a slave to Abraham and Sarah, but she was a slave in Egypt. She was property of Pharaoh. Sarah gets impatient with God's timing, and Abraham has a leadership lapse and won't correct her. And because of that, Hagar is forced to sleep with, conceive, carry, and eventually birth a child that she will never be a mother to. This is a woman who lived her entire existence with the understanding that she was only truly valued as a piece of property. This woman who has never been truly seen is now all alone in the wilderness, somewhere between her first home with Pharaoh in Egypt and her second home with Abraham in Canaan. And now that we know a little more about Hagar's backstory, we can better appreciate the profound beauty of her calling God El Roi, the God who sees me, because for the very first time in her life, she experiences being seen, being known, being understood, being identified as something other than a piece of property. But maybe you don't necessarily need to know Hagar's backstory to fully appreciate the God who sees you, because you've got your own backstory. I may not know it, others may not know it, there may be things about it that nobody knows, but you know your history, and you know your context, and you know the hurt you've endured, and you know the disadvantages you faced, and you know the invisibility you felt. But doesn't that make it all the sweeter when you can look back over your life and you can say, I may have been abused and confused, lost and left, unknown and unseen. But just when I think I'm all alone, I come to realize that there's somebody that's always watching me. There's somebody that always has their eye on me. I realize it's El Roi, the God who sees me. When I thought nobody saw me, when I thought nobody cared, when I thought nobody understood and nobody knew, now I realize that there was a God who sees me, and I can call him El Roi, the God who sees me. Are you thankful for a God that sees you here today? Why don't you clap your hands to him? I want to talk about how he sees you where you are. He sees what you are, and he sees the unseen things. God sees you where you are.